ready to share a new story? Well, I have chosen a rather magical and enchanting book to share. The title is Chronicles of the Unicorn Kingdom, Saving the King. If you have this book at home, you can read along with me. The author, the person who has written this story, is Kyle Rawley, and the illustrator, the person who has drawn all the pictures, is Linda Bryson. Now, I'm going to read the first 4 chapters of this magical story. I wonder, have you ever stood at the bottom of a rainbow and wondered what might happen? Shall we read and find out? Chapter 1, Leo. It is true. This is a story about hidden worlds, magical kingdoms, friendship, bravery, family, and, of course, unicorns. This story doesn't start there though. It starts in a place much more ordinary, in Andover, Minnesota. A family like many others lives there. A mom and a dad got married and created a family of their own. They had 3 girls who aren't so little anymore. The oldest is Liv. She is 12 now. She's very smart and loves school, but not as much as she loves to dance. The middle child is Ava, who is 11 and loves making people smile and doing anything artistic, especially drawing. Claire is the youngest. Even though she is 9 now, like many youngest children, she's still considered the baby by her whole family. Claire loves making people laugh and spending time with her big sisters. The family is loving and genuinely happy. There is also a 4-legged member of the family, a golden retriever named Leo. They got this puppy when Liv was 7, which would make Leo 5 now, or about 35 in dog years. Liv, Ava and Claire get along great most of the time, and they have taken Leo with them everywhere they've gone for the 5 years he's been around. The 4 of them are best friends. "Let's go to the park," Ava said. "Last one there is a rotten egg," Liv yelled. "First one eats it," said Claire, who, being the smallest, hadn't won a lot of races in her life. "Come on, boy, it's time for a walk," she yelled to Leo. The 3 girls started putting on their shoes. Liv, as competitive as she is, was the first one out the door, and Ava wasn't far behind. "Guys, wait!" Claire yelled. Leo wasn't here yet. That was very odd, because normally whenever it was time for a walk to the park, Leo was the only one who could keep pace with Liv. Claire went downstairs and saw Leo lying in his dog bed. "Come on, boy, time for a walk," she said again. Leo looked up at her, and Claire could tell by the way his eyes looked that he wanted to come, but he couldn't. "Mom, Mom, Mom," Claire yelled. Their mom came running downstairs. "What's up, Claire Bear?" she asked. "Something is wrong with Leo. He isn't getting up for a walk. He's been acting kind of weird for a couple of days, but now I'm starting to get worried about him," Claire replied. "Why don't you head to the park with your sisters? I'll take Leo to the vet for a checkup," Mom said. Claire bent down and patted Leo on the head. "Take it easy, boy. Mummy will make sure you're all better soon." Claire ran upstairs, grabbed her shoes and bike, and started making her way to the park. Her sisters were nowhere in sight. They were probably already at the park, wondering where she was. Once Claire got there, she told her sisters what had happened. "Don't worry, Claire Bear. If Mum is taking Leo to the vet, he's going to be fine. He'll probably get some medicine and be as good as new in a couple of This isn't the first time he's been a little under the weather, Liv reassured her littlest sister. Yeah, remember last year when he threw up and ruined the carpet? He just had a tummy bug, and with some medicine, he was better in like 3 days, Ava said. Her sisters were right, so Claire took a breath and started to play. It was a pretty normal summer day after that. The sun shone brightly, and the girls had a great time at the park. They played until they started getting hungry, and then went home to get dinner. That was when things started to turn the opposite of normal. In fact, things started to get downright bad. When the girls got home, dinner wasn't ready like it usually was. Leo was lying in his dog bed downstairs, hardly even moving. He didn't lift his head when he heard the girls come inside, but he turned his eyes and gave a slight wag of his tail to show he was happy they were home. Sit down, girls. I've got some bad news, their mom said. I took Leo to the vet today and her eyes started watering, and she put her hand over her mouth. Girls, Leo is really sick, Dad said. His eyes started to water too. There isn't anything we can do to help him, and he probably doesn't have much time left, Dad stammered. How much time exactly? Liv asked. A week, maybe 2. I'm so sorry, girls. Leo has been such a good dog, and even though it's less time than we wanted, he's had a good life. The best thing we can do for him is make sure he is taken care of and happy over the next few days, Dad explained. Seeing her mom tear up made Ava cry, and she ran over to give her mom a hug. Liv had always been a daddy's girl, so she went straight to her dad. Everyone looked over at Claire and waited for her to jump in on the family hug. Claire got up off the couch, headed towards them, but walked right past and went downstairs to see Leo. Don't worry, boy. We're going to take good care of you, like we always have, Claire said. Then she walked up to her room and shut the door. Without realizing it, they didn't have a family dinner that night. Everyone felt too sad to be hungry. After Claire had some alone time, she went back downstairs where everyone was huddled around Leo and petting him. His tail was wagging and he looked happy. Claire joined in as the family tried to treat their beloved dog like a king until it was time for bed. They went to bed, but it took everyone a while to fall asleep. Everyone except Liv. That is, her mind was racing. She was worried about Leo and didn't like how helpless she felt. She wished there was something she could do. Since she couldn't sleep, she grabbed her phone and started doing what she did best, research. She started off by researching what she could do to make Leo comfortable and happy. One thing led to another, and she was researching home remedies to try to help Leo recover on her own. As she continued searching the internet in the middle of the night, she came across stories that got stranger and stranger. She found lots of examples of dogs that were incredibly sick, only to turn around completely and make a full recovery. Some of the stories claimed that prayers were the cure. Others believed it was a change in the animal's diet or exercise. Some just stated they were complete miracles. One thing was sure, occasionally something took place that cured a sick puppy. But no matter how deep Liv got into her research, she could never find anything that connected the dots. There appeared to be no pattern she could follow. The dogs getting better seemed random. Frustrated, Liv thought, I guess all we can do is hope and wait. That was when she stumbled on the story that really caught her eye. It wasn't what you're thinking. Nothing about secret worlds, magic, or unicorns. It was a story about a very sick dog that miraculously got better. Liv had read several of these stories, but what made this one so special was that it happened to a family in Minnesota. One of the girls in the family went to Liv's school. She was in Ava's grade, but Liv knew who she was. Her name was Grace, and she lived only about an 11-minute bike ride away. Liv knew her sisters weren't going to like the idea of stopping by Grace's house, but in her sleep-deprived state of mind, it made all the sense in the world. In the morning, she was going to talk to her sisters and ask them to head over to Grace's house to see if they could find a way to save Leo. Satisfied with her plan, Liv was finally able to shut her mind down and get some much-needed rest. As she drifted off to sleep, she smiled for the first time since they had gotten home from the park. Chapter 2, Grace. Liv was the last one to wake up that morning. She ran downstairs as fast as she could to see Leo and her sisters. Why didn't anyone wake me up? Liv asked. Mainly because you didn't ask us to, and you normally get angry when we wake you up, Ava answered. You might want to go back to bed for a little longer, Claire chimed in. You still look really tired. That's because I was up all night researching and making a plan, Liv said. A plan about what exactly? Claire asked. A plan to save Leo, Liv replied quickly. Look, I checked into it and we can't just give up. When I was researching last night, I found tons of stories about sick dogs that suddenly got better. The last story I found of this happening took place right down the street from here. It's a girl in Ava's grade named Grace. I was thinking we could go over there and see if she can tell us what happened. Maybe it's something they did, Liv said, getting more excited the more she talked. No way. Bad idea. I love you, sis, but that's not going to happen, Ava said. That's your big plan? Claire asked. Ava is right. We aren't going to get anywhere over there. She's a few French fries short of a Happy Meal, if you know what I mean. Claire, that's definitely not a saying. She's right though, Liv. Grace is a little crazy, Ava said. Crazy is an understatement. The girl is a total weirdo. There was always something off about her, and that was before she started telling everyone she sees unicorns, Claire said. Oh, the crazy unicorn girl is Grace? Liv asked. Yep, she's missing so many French fries that she doesn't just claim she's seen a unicorn. She claims that everyone else just can't see them. Somehow, she's the only one who can, Claire said. Again, that's not a saying, and it also isn't helpful. Look, this made perfect sense to me last night. Liv said. Ava cut her off. It kind of sounds like you might have been dreaming. Yeah, who knows how much time Leo even has left, Claire said. We shouldn't be chasing around some Looney Tune. We should be spending our time here with Leo. First of all, that's not a very nice thing to say. Second of all, if we have a chance to help Leo, don't you think we should do it? Liv asked. The girls looked over at Leo. His tail was wagging again, as if he approved. If there was anything Leo could do to help us, he'd do it. Even if the chances are small, it's got to be worth a shot. It won't take that long. Maybe we'll go see Grace and find out there is nothing we can do. We'll come home, only wasting about an hour. But maybe, just maybe, we'll get an idea of something we can do to help, Liv said. Oh, all right, I'll go with you, Ava said. Claire looked at Leo. She was having trouble leaving him right now, but if there was some way this crazy Grace girl could help, it would be worth it. You said it would take an hour, Claire asked. Make it 45 minutes and I'm in. The girls told their parents they were going to a friend's house and hopped on their bikes to head to Grace's. Within 11 minutes, they were at Grace's driveway. Her home was impressive. The lawn was very nicely manicured and professionally landscaped. The house was enormous, the biggest on the block by far. There was a white picket fence around the property and a gate that blocked the entrance. The gate said Riley on it. That was Grace's last name. There was a buzzer that looked like a doorbell next to the gate. Eager to get this over with and get home, Claire pressed it. There was a buzz, and someone started talking through the intercom. Hello, the voice said. It was a woman, probably Grace's mom. Hi, Mrs. Riley. We're here to see Grace. Is she home? Liv asked. Yes, she is. May I ask your name? Mrs. Riley asked. It's Liv, Ava and Claire, your neighbours, Liv answered. Stand back and then come on up to the front door after the gate opens. I'll let Grace know you're here. The gate opened and the girls rode their bikes up to the house. Once they got to the front door, Liv put her hand up to knock and let them know they had arrived, but the door opened before she touched it. Mrs. Riley had pulled the door open. She looked very happy to see the girls. Grace doesn't get a lot of visitors, Mrs. Riley said. I'm sure she'll be very happy to see you. Head upstairs. Her room is the second one on the left. The girls took off their shoes and ran up the stairs. They got to the second door on the left. The door was open, but nobody was in the room. They walked in and waited. Liv immediately had a bad feeling that this wasn't going to be a helpful conversation. Grace's room was covered in unicorn stuff. Unicorn toys, unicorn dolls, unicorn posters, bedspread and lamp. Her closet was open and, you guessed it, there were unicorn clothes. I think you guys were right. Maybe we should leave, Liv said. Just then, Grace walked into the room. She was Ava's age, but a little bit taller. Her hair was sandy blonde, and she had brown eyes. She would have looked totally normal if it weren't for the Unicorns Rule t-shirt she was wearing and her headband, with a unicorn horn on top. "What are you guys doing here?" Grace asked. "We were just leaving. I'm really sorry to have bothered you," Liv said. "Typical," Grace said, kind of snarkily. "Liv, just tell her why we came here," Ava said. "Fine," Liv said. "Our dog, Leo, is sick. I was doing research online and found several stories of dogs that miraculously got better. I saw that it happened to your dog, and we thought maybe you could tell us if there was anything specific that might help Leo." "I actually do know something you could do to help save your dog," Grace answered confidently. "What is it?" Claire asked, suddenly very interested. "If I tell you, you guys will make fun of me, and you definitely won't believe me," she answered. "We're here and we're listening," Ava said, getting excited. "I know how crazy I am going to sound, but listen until the end, all right?" Grace started. "I saved my dog, but I had a lot of help." "Like a vet?" Liv asked. "No, a unicorn saved my dog, but I was the one who found the unicorn that saved her," Grace replied. "Oh, right, the unicorns. I should have known. Well, thanks. This has been really helpful. We'd better be on our way," Liv said. "Look, I know you guys think I'm crazy. Everyone does. But unicorns have the ability to heal any ailment. I found a unicorn and I can prove it. You guys could find one too and save your dog." "Unless the proof is a unicorn, I think we need to leave," Ava said. "Well, you wouldn't be able to see the unicorn. Only I can see them," Grace replied. Claire looked at Liv and twirled her finger near her ear, making the cuckoo sign. "I can't show you a unicorn, but I can show you a unicorn horn." "Well, part of one anyway," Grace said. She walked over to her desk, opened the top right drawer and pulled out a fairly small pink box. Painted on the box was a unicorn. Did you think it would be anything else? She opened it and pulled out a piece of something the three sisters had never seen. "Can I hold that?" Liv asked. She wanted to examine it more closely. Grace handed it to her. It was certainly unlike anything Liv had ever seen. It wasn't an entire horn, just part of one. The end was pointed like you'd expect, and it had a jagged break on the bottom that indicated it had been snapped off of something. It was about 4 inches long altogether. It was definitely unusual, but Liv wasn't convinced it was a unicorn's horn. To find a unicorn, you need to find a rainbow, stand at the bottom of it, and wish you had a way to save your dog. The rainbow will take you where you need to go. Once you get to the secret place, you need to find Kenji, Grace said. "I take it Kenji is a unicorn?" Liv asked. Grace started laughing hysterically. The type of cackle you'd expect to hear from someone who thinks you can ride a rainbow to a secret world to see a unicorn. "No, I already told you that only I can see unicorns. Kenji is a bird, but he'll be able to explain everything," she said. Completely uncomfortable and feeling more than ever that they were wasting their time, Claire spoke up. "Well, thank you, Grace. This has been really helpful," she fibbed. We have to get going now. We've got unicorns to find, she said sarcastically. The girls got up and started heading down the stairs to leave Grace's house. They put on their shoes, and as they were about to head out the door, Grace shouted, "Wait!" The girls stopped, thinking Grace was going to have one last absolutely crazy thing to tell them about unicorns or an insane rainbow ride to Unicorn Land. But Grace said, "Thanks for not telling me I'm a few French fries short of a Happy Meal. People usually pick on me after I tell them about that, and it was nice to have some people listen to me." "No problem. Great talking to you," Liv said as they rushed out of the house. Claire smiled for the first time since she found out Leo was sick. "I told you that French fry thing was a saying." Chapter 3, The Rainbow Jungle. The girls couldn't help but feel more helpless than ever. They were annoyed they had wasted time with Grace's crazy stories when they could have been spending time with Leo. 2 days went by and the weekend was over. Leo didn't seem to be getting any better, but he also didn't seem to be getting any worse. They decided that was a good thing for now. With the weekend coming to a close, their dad had to go back to work. Mom had gone on a few errands. The girls took their normal places around Leo, who was trying to relax in his dog bed. It was gloomy outside, which was setting the tone for the entire day. The girls were glad to be spending time with their dog, but the gross weather was making them feel worse about the situation. Before long, the gloom turned to darkness as a storm rolled in. There was no thunder or lightning, just a steady, heavy rain. It rained like that for almost an hour when suddenly it stopped and the sun tried to come out. "You've got to be kidding me," Liv said in disbelief. "Is the sun finally coming out?" Ava asked. "No, look," Liv said. "This has to be some sort of a sign." Ava and Claire joined Liv at the window and were caught off guard. As the sun came out, a rainbow formed. That wasn't the surprising part. They had seen plenty of rainbows before, but this rainbow seemed to begin in their backyard. There was no pot of gold like you always hear about, but it was crazy to see it so close. "Yeah, it probably is a sign," Ava said. "A sign that you're just as crazy as Grace, if you think that means something." "Grace did have part of a unicorn horn. Don't you think it might be worth a try?" asked Claire. "That could have been anything but a unicorn horn," Ava replied. "Well, if you are so sure it isn't going to work, why don't you run outside and give it a try?" Claire asked. "Yeah, I mean, nothing is going to happen anyway. It's not going to hurt to give it a go," Liv said. Ava rolled her eyes at her sisters. It made sense that she should be the one to try it, since she was pretty brave and always willing to try something new. She opened the back door and headed out to the backyard. She was so sure this was only going to take a second that she didn't bother to put on her shoes. "It is kind of cool seeing a rainbow this close," she admitted as she approached the multicoloured light in the backyard. She took a few steps closer, so her toes were touching the bottom of the rainbow. See? Nothing, she said, very matter of fact. Maybe you need to walk farther in, Claire suggested. Ava took a few more steps forward, walking all the way through the rainbow. She got a funny feeling. She could feel the mist of the rainbow on her face, and as she walked into it, the rainbow got a lot more difficult to see. While it felt a little odd, she definitely wasn't going anywhere. Didn't Crazy Grace say you were supposed to do something? Claire asked. Ava took a few steps back toward her sisters, so her toes were back at the base of the rainbow. Yeah, she said we are supposed to stand here and wish we could do something to save Leo, Ava said. And as that thought crossed her mind, she started to feel funny again. This wasn't like a mist on her face. It was something different. She felt like she was getting lighter. She looked down, and her feet were still planted firmly on the ground. As she stared at them, she saw her toes start to disappear right in front of her eyes, as if she were disintegrating. Guys, something isn't right. I feel weird. Do you see my feet? They're disappearing, Ava yelled in a panic. Get away from there, Liv screamed. Ava tried to move, but now her feet were gone, and her legs were starting to disappear. She looked like she was floating in the air without any legs. Someone help me! Someone do something! She hollered at her sisters. By now, all that was left of her were her shoulders, neck, and head. She was trying to yell for help as her mouth disappeared. All that was left of her was from her eyes up. The last thing she saw before everything went dark was Liv and Claire running back into the house. Everything was dark for a minute, when all of a sudden Ava felt a crash. Her feet hit the ground, as if she were dropped from somewhere. She could see again, but she wasn't in her backyard in Andover anymore. It looked like a tropical rainforest, or at least what Ava thought a tropical rainforest might look like. There were a few major differences between this rainforest and anything she had seen on television or in books. There were enormously tall, wide trees everywhere. Many of them were covered with moss and vines. There were a lot of plants she didn't recognize, but that wasn't the weird part. The sky here wasn't just blue. It was all 7 colors of the rainbow. She noticed in the distance something that looked like a mountain, but it didn't look natural. Not much seemed natural at that moment. Ava turned around in a complete circle, looking for any sign of the rainbow in hopes she might make a wish to go home. But the only thing resembling a rainbow was the sky, and she was nowhere near it. She looked up and wished she was back home, but nothing happened. Reality began to sink in that she was going to be stuck here. She took a step forward and felt a nasty goo squish between her toes. She looked down. It was only mud. And then she remembered she had left the house without her shoes. Great, she said out loud to herself. Leave it to me to somehow teleport to a different world all by myself and not bring my shoes with me, she thought. She remembered the last thing she saw before everything went black. Liv and Claire running away. I definitely wouldn't have run away, Ava thought. She wasn't sure what she would have done, but she would have tried to help somehow. As she stood in this new world, alone and shoeless, she decided she might as well start looking for someone or something that might be able to help her find her way back home. She started walking towards the mountain she saw in the distance. As she got a little closer, she realized what made the mountain look so unnatural. It was very tall, steep and pointy. It looked a lot like a unicorn horn. As she wondered about what might be at the top, she heard several footsteps to her right. She stopped and looked, but she couldn't see anything. Once she'd stopped, she didn't hear anything either. Ava began to think that maybe she'd imagined it, and she started walking again. Before long, she heard what sounded like several very rapid footsteps. But this time, they sounded like they were coming from above her. She looked up, and her jaw dropped. She froze for a second in terror as she saw an enormous spider lowering itself from the massive tree above. The footsteps she had heard that sounded like several creatures were actually the rapid movement of the colossal spider's 8 legs. Ava thought it was bigger than her dog, Leo. Remember, Ava is very brave, and she tried to think quickly. It boiled down to her basic instincts. She could stand her ground and fight, or run away. Ava usually didn't back down from anything, but Ava didn't do spiders. She hated spiders, and so did her sisters. At home, her dad was the spider squisher. As the spider dropped to the ground, Ava took off running. She was quick and hoped she could outrun this freakishly large monster. It didn't take long for her to realize she wasn't going to be outrunning this thing. It happened to be crazy fast. She decided to use her smaller size to her advantage and darted off the path into the denser part of the jungle. She was trying to squeeze between the tightest areas of trees and foliage, hoping the massive spider wouldn't fit through. It was only about a minute, but it felt like forever when Ava seemed to have lost the spider. She put her hands on her knees and bent over for a moment to catch her breath when the spider dropped down right in front of her. She instinctively turned around and started running in the opposite direction. Before she knew what had happened, she was stuck. She realized she had run right into a giant spider web that most likely belonged to the 8-legged monster right behind her. She turned around, and while she faced the spider, she found herself getting more tangled in the web. She could hardly move, and the spider was walking toward her. As it got closer, Ava saw that it had hairy legs. Hairy-legged spiders were the grossest of them all. She thought she couldn't be any more frightened. But then it got about a foot away from her and opened its mouth. She saw its giant, dripping spider fangs. Ava closed her eyes, waiting for a vicious bite, but she heard a loud crash and a sort of splattering sound. She opened her eyes, and there were Liv and Claire standing on top of the very giant, smashed spider. "Ew! What are we standing in?" asked Claire. "Those are spider guts," Ava yelled. "I have never been happier to see you guys. How did you get here?" "We did what you did. We stood in the rainbow and wished we could help Leo. Then we started disappearing like you did and got plopped down right here. Good timing, I suppose, but this is disgusting," Liv said. "Well, what took you so long? I thought you guys left me. The last thing I saw was both of you running back inside," Ava said. "Yeah, to get supplies and your shoes," Liv answered, as she turned round to show Ava she had a backpack stuffed full of what were most likely very useful supplies. "Help me down," Ava said. Liv had packed a lot of things they would need, but she hadn't brought anything to cut spider webs. "Claire, find a big stick and let's knock this web down," Liv said. They both wandered away for a moment and came back with some strong sticks. They started knocking down the web, and before long, Ava was free. She put on her shoes. "I can't believe this is happening. What's the plan?" Ava asked. "I wish I would have paid better attention when Grace was talking, but everything sounded so crazy at the time," Liv said. "That's because this is crazy," said Claire. "We're supposed to find a bird or something, right?" Ava asked. "That's right, Kenji. This jungle is huge. I wish she had been more specific," Liv said, sounding frustrated. Ava pointed to the mountain in the distance that was shaped like a unicorn horn. "What do you think about heading there?" she asked. "That's as good a plan as any. Let's start heading in that direction and keep our eyes peeled for a talking bird," Liv said. Claire started giggling. "What's so funny?" Liv asked. "This is amazing. We've got a chance to save Leo, but nobody is ever going to believe us. We're the next three to be a few French fries short of a Happy Meal," Claire said, chuckling. "Grace will believe us," Ava said, and with that, they started walking toward the mountain, shaped like a unicorn's horn. Chapter 4. Kenji and Drew. The girls made their way toward all their horn-shaped mountain. They hadn't gone very far when they noticed how quiet it was. Liv knew they weren't in a regular jungle, but she expected to hear more noise from birds or something. That was when she heard a scream that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. "Kenji!" Claire screamed. "Claire, you need to keep it down. We have no idea what kind of creatures are out here. I wouldn't expect anyone else to fall out of the sky and save us," Ava said. "How can I be of service?" an unfamiliar voice asked. "Kenji?" Liv asked. "Yes, I am Kenji. How can I be of service?" he asked again. Kenji looked like a toucan. The only unusual thing about him was that he could understand what they were saying and he could talk back. "This is weird, talking to a bird. We are here trying to save our dog, Leo. We're looking for a unicorn that might be able to help heal him. He is really sick, Liv explained. Oh yes, there is a unicorn here, and I can take you to him. He is my friend, and I know right where he lives, Kenji said, sounding excited to be able to help. Follow me, he squawked, and flew away. Wait up, Liv yelled. Kenji was flying from branch to branch of the giant rainbow jungle trees. He flew ahead about 5 trees at a time and waited for the girls to catch up. They were heading in the opposite direction of the unicorn horn-shaped mountain. I guess we had the wrong idea trying to head to that mountain, Ava said. No big deal. We're going the right way now, Liv answered. Tree after tree, Kenji continued to lead the girls through the rainbow jungle until the trees started to thin out. It appeared as if they were leaving the jungle when they came to a clearing that ended at the bottom of a very steep cliff. Kenji started flying toward the cliff and then landed on the ground a few feet before crashing into the stone. He started hopping and then disappeared. As the girls caught up, they noticed Kenji was waiting in the mouth of a cave. Kenji, is this safe? Liv asked. If you need a unicorn, this is where you need to go. This is his house, Kenji said. Yes, we're here. We are going to save Leo, Claire yelled happily. Quiet. He scares easily. You want to move slowly and keep it down, Kenji said as he started hopping into the cave. The cave was surprisingly small. The girls expected to be wandering for a long time through a pitch-black cave, but that wasn't the case. This cave was very shallow. They got a few steps in and could already see the back, which was empty. Kenji, you are friends with this unicorn, right? Liv asked politely. Any idea when he might be home? We don't exactly have a ton of time. He's already here. Walk slowly so you don't scare him, Kenji said. There is literally nothing, nobody in here except us, Claire said sadly. Wait here, Kenji responded as he flew out of the cave. The girls waited patiently, and within a few minutes, Kenji came back with a twig in his claw. The small branch had 3 berries on it. They were about the size of a large strawberry, but they were round and yellow. Eat these and then you'll see, Kenji said. Ava grabbed the branch and plucked off the berries. She handed one to Liv, one to Claire, and saved the last for herself. All 3 girls popped a berry into their mouths and started chewing. They were the juiciest berries they'd ever eaten. They started out very sweet, but the more they chewed them, the more sour and bitter they got. By the end, they tasted awful, but they managed to finish them. You have sight now. Look again, Kenji said. The girls peered into the back of the cave, and something began to take shape. It looked like a horse, but they could make out something on top of its head. It started out very fuzzy, but the longer they waited after eating the berries, the clearer the shape became. The unicorn was lying down and didn't appear pretty like you might expect. Its hair was matted and splotchy, almost grey looking, as if it were very dirty. Its mane and tail were both very tangled. "This is Drew," Kenji said. "It's a boy?" Ava asked, surprised. For some reason, she always pictured unicorns as girls. "Hello, I'm Liv. These are my little sisters, Ava and Claire." "My name is Drew. I am a unicorn," he answered. "Our dog is sick, and we were told you might be able to help make him better," Claire said, cutting right to the chase. "I would love to help you, but I can't," Drew said. "I don't have any magic powers anymore." "What do you mean you don't have magic powers?" "We were told you have the ability to heal," Liv said. "I can't do much of anything with this broken horn," Drew answered. "Well, that is true," Kenji said. "Drew has lost his powers and a lot of his memory since he broke his horn. The horn is what makes a unicorn special, and that is where they keep all their magic. Once a horn is broken, a unicorn isn't really that different from a regular horse. Each unicorn has the power to heal, but only one time in their life, so they must choose very carefully. Of course, that's if their horn isn't destroyed." "But we need a unicorn with the ability to heal, so we can save our dog, Leo," Claire said sadly. "My horn is broken. I don't have any magic powers," said Drew. "We know. You already told us that," Liv said, becoming impatient. "Hi, my name is Drew. I'm a unicorn," Drew said again. When Drew's horn broke, he didn't just lose his power, he also lost his memory. Kenji said, "He is pretty forgetful these days." "You've got to be kidding me. We were able to come to a completely different world, destroy a giant spider, follow a talking bird across a jungle, and eat magic berries, only to find a unicorn who has no powers and can't remember anything. We don't have time for this," Liv shouted. "Don't have time for what?" Drew asked. "We don't have time to mess around. We need to save our dog," Liv said, becoming more frustrated. "Oh, my horn is broken. I don't have magic powers," Drew told them for the third time. "There has to be another unicorn here we can use," Liv said. "Kenji, you need to find us another unicorn, one with powers who can remember something for more than 5 seconds." "I can take you to another unicorn," Drew said. Since this was the first somewhat helpful thing Drew had said, Liv decided to hear him out. "How can you help us with that?" "I was banished from the unicorn kingdom, but I can get you there," Drew said. "We just need to get to the top of that mountain shaped like a unicorn horn on the other side of the jungle. There are many unicorns there, and one of them is sure to help you." "Why were you banished from the unicorn kingdom?" Ava asked. "I don't remember," Drew said. "Shocking," Liv replied. "Kenji, why didn't you just take us to that mountaintop to begin with?" "Once you get to the top of the mountain," Drew added, "you need a unicorn to help teleport you to the unicorn kingdom. So you can remember some things," Claire said, sounding optimistic. "I don't remember how I remembered that. We have a long way to go though, and if you're in a hurry, we'd better get going," Drew said. He started walking in the direction of the mountain, and the girls followed along closely. Kenji must have thought that he had done what they needed because he flew away without saying goodbye. As they started walking toward the mountain with their dishevelled unicorn friend, Ava had many questions for him. "How did your horn break?" Ava asked Drew. "I don't remember," Drew replied. "Did you already use your one-time healing power before your horn broke?" Ava asked. "I don't remember that either," Drew said. "What is the Unicorn Kingdom like?" Ava asked. "That I remember," Drew said. "The Unicorn Kingdom is a very large city full of nothing but unicorns. The homes are made of candy, and the landscape is all pink. The sky is all pink. At the centre of the city is an enormous, beautiful palace where the king lives." "Did you have friends and family before you got banished?" Ava asked. "Yes, well, I think I did. I'm almost positive I did. I can't remember who they were or what they were like," Drew said, sounding kind of sad for the first time since the girls met him. "Well, we're really grateful that you're helping us find a unicorn who can save Leo," Liv said. "Who is Leo?" Drew asked. "Leo is our dog, the one we're trying to save," Liv replied. "Oh, right. I can't help you with that. My powers are gone now that my horn is broken," Drew said. "Here we go again," the girls thought. "Let's go over this again," Liv said. "You are taking us to the Unicorn Kingdom to help us find a unicorn to save our dog Leo, who is sick. I am Liv." She pointed at Ava and said, "This is my sister Ava." Claire walked up and put her hand on Drew's nose. "And this little one is Claire," Drew said. "Drew, you remembered Claire's name," Liv said excitedly. "I did? Sweet. I don't remember how I remembered that. But I'm glad I did," Drew said happily. They continued walking for quite some time, carrying on similar conversations. Most of the time, Drew didn't remember the answers to the questions they asked about unicorns or the Unicorn Kingdom. They had to remind Drew about 100 more times where they were going, what they were doing, and who they were. The one thing he seemed to always remember was Claire. After a while, they reached the base of the unicorn horn-shaped mountain. The rainbow-coloured sky was starting to blacken. It was getting dark. "We should rest here tonight," Drew said. "We have a long road ahead of us to climb that mountain tomorrow." Liv opened her backpack. She threw Ava and Claire a water bottle and an apple. She took a water and apple for herself and gave some of each to Drew. She pulled out a bag of Cheetos and shared them with her sisters. "What are those? They smell amazing," Drew said. "These are Cheetos. Try some," Liv said as she dumped about a third of the bag on the ground in front of Drew. Drew ate them in about 3 seconds. "Those are amazing. Thanks for sharing. We had better get some rest now. Sleep well, everyone," Drew said. The girls tried to get comfortable enough to get some rest. It was hard to sleep after reflecting on everything they had been through that day. They had teleported through a rainbow to a new world, smashed a giant spider, followed a talking bird to a unicorn they could see after eating enchanted berries, only to find out he had no powers and no memory. Now they were trying to get some rest after sharing some Cheetos with their broken-horned friend before climbing a mountain to travel to another world, the Unicorn Kingdom. This was the craziest day ever, Ava said. No, it was the craziest day ever so far, Liv said, smiling. Oh, what an incredible start to this wonderful story. I am sorry that Leo the dog is poorly, but the girls are going to do everything that they can to make sure he gets better. And that means that they have started on a magical and an enchanting journey to a whole new world, talking to birds, seeing unicorns. I don't know about you, but I am very excited to find out what happens next. And I want to know how this story is going to end. I hope you've enjoyed this Shed Time story. And if you want to, you can like, share, follow and subscribe to Shed Time Stories. Then you will be ready for the next book for us to share together. Bye-bye.